مرحبا بالحضور جميعا. قمنا بهذه الدعوة الخاصة لمن نعلم أن لديه اهتمام بمشروع دار الحرية ويريد معرفة تفاصيل أكثر عنه. لذلك دعونا نرحب بكل من السيدة ريما العلي، محامية وناشطة في واشنطن، الكاتب والناشط السيد ميكو بيليد من واشنطن، والناشط في حقوق الإنسان السيد عيسى من الفلسطين، حيث سيقومون بشرح كامل عن المشروع وأهدافه لمدة 40 دقيقة، وبعد ذلك فقرة الأسئلة والأجوبة لمدة 50 دقيقة. شكراً.
The number of countries pulling their funding from UNRWA continues to grow. Sweden, one of the latest to join this growing list, and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu speaking on camera with a number of foreign ambassadors today, giving the strongest indications yet that Israel wants UNRWA to be essentially removed, and also making new allegations that leadership officials within UNRWA were complicit, he said, in the October 7th massacres.
And we've discovered in the last few weeks that UNRWA officials were complicit in the massacre. And I think it's time that the international community and the UN itself understand that UNRWA's mission has to end. UNRWA is self-perpetuating. It is self-perpetuating also in its desire to keep alive the Palestinian refugee issue. And we need to get other UN agencies and other aid agencies replacing UNRWA if we're going to solve the problem of Gaza.
Well, there you have it. This is what we are facing. Good evening, and thank you very much for coming on this cold evening to give us the opportunity to present to you our initiative, the Dar al-Harriya initiative. As you know, that our people for the past 4 months have sacrificed more than ever before, and we continue to sacrifice. This sacrifice has actually outraged the entire world and made the people go to the streets and demonstrate with us their outrage, and created a gap between the people and the governments in the West. Unfortunately, there is no organization on the ground that actually harnesses, first of all, that actually harnesses the momentum, or actually makes the fact that the sacrifices won't go in vain. We decided that this is something that we actually have to act upon, because if we're asked some time in the future, have you been there and what have you done, we need to answer to our grandkids what we have done. The absence of any organization that puts Palestine and the Palestinians front, back and center in the capitals of the world have made it easy for the Zionists to actually dehumanize us, stigmatize us, have their narrative, and make our life very miserable. The Dar al-Harriya is a non-profit corporation under a 501c3 organization in DC, and it intends to create a very prominent position, prominent place. I think it's quite difficult to see and talk. A space, we create a space in Washington, D.C. and in America in order to advocate for the Palestinians and the Palestinian cause. This has a vision, and our vision is actually peace in Palestine and prosperity and a living for all, a good living for all Palestinians and all people that live in Palestine, reside in Palestine, regardless of religion, from an entire historic Palestine. We intend to do that through education and advocacy. Basically, we have the core pillars: education, social diversity, and amplify the voice of Palestine. The structure of the organization starts with the members. We have collected a group of members that actually are from all walks of life and with different skills and talents. These people would be the upper body of the organization, would ensure the legitimacy and the good governance of the organization. We have, in Palestine, we have names from people who are activists on the ground and they know what the situation is. We have, I'm not going to name all of them. We'll at some point provide you with this. And we have in the US, and we have the group that is in Jordan, lives in Jordan, that invited you to this evening. We will have a board of directors, we'll have officers, and we will have actually a prominent location whereby we create the activities. I'm gonna turn over the mic to my friend in order, Miko, to explain how we intend to do the education and the advocacy exactly. And then we will have my colleague Isa Amro explain why it's needed, because we as Palestinians have always felt that we're orphans. We don't have embassies, we don't have anything that actually stands for us. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Rima, and thank you all for being here. Thank you, Azam, Fakhruddin, for putting this whole thing together, and all of you for being here. And we have a team that has been put together over the last few months that has really dedicated itself to making this happen. And so I am, indebted and feel a great deal of gratitude that we're able to all work together and put this together so quickly. Rima flew in from Washington, D.C. in the middle of a very difficult case just for this. Isa crossed the bridge under very difficult conditions just to come and do this. And the urgency, I don't think it's something that we need to discuss. I think the urgency is obvious, it's clear why there's an urgency to have a Palestinian voice, a clear Palestinian voice doing this work in Washington, D.C. We've all become friends very quickly. We've been sharing information, we've been sharing ideas. We put together this package as quickly as possible in order to get this thing off the ground and get to work. Because the ideas are there, the possibilities are there, the talent is there, but we just need to put it all together so we can actually get to work in Washington, D.C. And this presentation that you're going to see now, that I'm going to show you, has been put together rather quickly by a very talented friend, Farida. Where's Farida? She's over here. Thank you so much. She was drafted to do this, and again, it's been an incredible experience of teamwork to put this whole thing together. And again, thank you all for taking the time to come and listen and see how you can be part of this. So what I'm going to show you now is a chart that will, demonstrate and illustrate exactly how we envision this is going to work. Am I pushing the right button? Yes. So Dar al-Harriya will have all these different parts to it. And we want to clarify exactly how they're going to work. So first of all, who is Dar al-Harriya? And who is it that we're trying to approach? Who is it that we are targeting? Who are the people that we need to touch? Who are the people that we need to talk to? And the realization that many of us have reached is that while the other side is bombarding constantly and strategically every aspect of American society, so that really explaining or convincing or even lobbying for the Zionist idea it's part of American society, it's part of education, it's part of the culture. And of course, the other story doesn't exist. So even if somebody did want to make, somebody in a decision-making position didn't want to make an informed decision, they don't have the full picture. They don't have possession of the information. Oops, I went the wrong way, sorry. So there are two groups. So one group that we want to change and influence and provide them the information, and the other group are people who are already working, the organizations that already exist in the United States, and we're going to collaborate with them and support one another. And again, there's so many different organizations, but there's no center for everybody to come together and work together and strategize together. So that's another void, if you will, that we want to fill. So as you can see, there's several different groups here that we want to touch, that we want to be involved with. I'll start at the top, which is government, all the different government agencies, and I'll talk about that. The media, obviously, and we're always, it happens in Washington, D.C., it happens actually in other countries too, but we see that the media and the governments, regardless of how much popular support the Palestinian issue gets, are still completely focused, or almost completely focused, on the Israeli narrative and completely invested in the Zionist narrative. The diplomatic corps, I live in Washington, D.C., and you meet diplomats, you meet people who work within the world of embassies, within diplomatic corps, and they are dangerously misinformed. And so it's important to touch them and target them. Unions, many unions have already kind of bought into the idea of supporting Palestine, but we're nowhere near where we need to be. Academic institutions, and we've seen over the last few months what is happening in academic institutions. The prejudice against Palestine, the prejudice against Palestinian activism on campuses it's been going on for a very long time, but now it's heightened. And then there are influencer families who contribute, families who do a great deal of philanthropy on the local level within the United States and have a very strong Zionist connection. And then, of course, the general public. We need to educate, we need to advocate, we need to make sure that the story is out there for the general public. And again, it's not there in a strategic way, it's not there in an organized way. Why am I doing this wrong? Okay. So we'll talk about government. I'm going to start from the bottom, the local government. You know, they say in America all politics is local, and the Zionists understood this over 100 years ago. So they've been investing in local government. Anybody who runs for school boards, they are bombarded with information about this compelling story, the Zionist story of the Jewish people and how they've returned to their homeland, to their biblical, historical homeland, and so on. They are very often invited on trips. They're provided with an abundance of information about this very compelling story which they created, and Palestine is absent from all of that. Same thing goes for people who run for city council. The amount that is being invested in by the Zionists in these groups, in these local government groups, is incredible. Certainly mayors. A couple of things that are not there, like police chiefs as well. I'm sure you've heard about how in America police chiefs are invited to study from the Israeli security forces. And then, of course, state legislatures. And we've seen over the several years legislation being passed clearly, very, very strongly pro-Zionist, pro-Israeli, and in many ways anti-Palestinian legislation. And then, of course, the governors. On the top, we have on the federal level, we have, of course, the White House. We have, which includes, and in all of these things, you'll see there's the aides, and then there's the actual, the people that are the elected officials. And the aides are, in many situations, equally or even more important than the actual people sitting in office. And so we've got the White House, we've got the Senate, we've got Congress, obviously. And I remember a long time ago, this young Palestinian who works as an intern at one of the senator's offices came and told me, he said, We get 300 emails every day from Stand With Us. Stand With Us is just one Zionist organization. 300 emails every single day. So you know for sure that they're not sending it just to the one senator, they're sending it to everybody. And we also know for sure that it's not the only organization that's sending these emails, and it's not just emails. They're present, they're there, they've got their institutions, their offices, and so on. And they do a lot of work year-round, all the time, 24 hours a day. I always joke around, when you walk into the congressional offices in Washington, D.C., you see furniture, tables, chairs, and you see the pro-Israel lobbyists. They're always there. You go to the cafeteria, they're always there. They always have issues, they always have things that they are pursuing. And of course, we're there from time to time. There are advocacy days that some of the other organizations put together. So they train students and they send them to these offices to advocate 2-3 times a year. You can't compete with what the Zionists are doing with just that, and we see the results. The other side, the other group, like I said, are the groups of these are the people that we want to change. The other groups are the ones that we want to, where am I doing here wrong? Oops, I'm going backwards. Sorry. Like I said, this was put together in haste. I mean, Farida was just dragged into this, or I should say drafted into this just a couple of days ago. There it is. Okay. So the change we're talking about are, the support are all the other organizations that already are working, you know, the Palestine solidarity groups on campuses, the different groups, the Jewish groups, the Muslim groups, the Christian groups, the groups that are not, you know, are not identified by religion, but work to advocate for Palestine. And then other groups that don't deal with Palestine, but are out there doing social justice work. And we need everybody, we need to all work together so we're on the same page. And another problem is that we're not all on the same page. Even within the pro-Palestine community, we're not all on the same page in many, many ways. And again, this is a great way to draw everybody together, to strategize together, to work together. And then social influencers, people who are out there who have a voice, who have a following. And we want to tap into their talents, into their abilities, and into their platforms. Now, what are we going to be talking about? I mean, the list could go on forever, but we identified, you know, this list that we're seeing right here. And again, we envision things that are happening in the building, and of course, things that are going to be happening outside the building, things that we go out for, and we do outside. But the issues, as you can see from the top, the apartheid one is obvious, and there's already a report out there. Amnesty International gave us a gift about 2 years ago with a report on apartheid. It's been shelved, it's not discussed really, it's not talked about very much. More recently, the South Africans with their petition to the ICJ, the genocide petition. These are issues, of course, that need to be discussed. The right of return, even when we talk about within organizations that are pro-Palestinians, when we talk about the right of return, there's a sense that it's used as a slogan, as a bumper sticker, but very little attention is being given to how do we put in place mechanisms to actually make the right of return happen? Because I think I don't have to tell anybody in this room how crucial that is to the question of Palestine. Current events, of course, whatever is going on, and there are always things that are going on. The history of Palestine, most people, if they even know that there's a Palestine, I'm talking about the general public, I'm talking about all the different groups that we identified earlier, if they don't confuse Palestine with Pakistan, that's already a step in the right direction. But then we're talking about, the history of Palestine, 1948, violence, wars, terrorism. Good guys, bad guys, in kind of American simple terms. But we all know that the history of Palestine goes back thousands of years, that Palestine has been, it was identified as Palestine going back thousands of years, and it has a rich history, a very rich history in culture and commerce and so on. That has never been not really discussed. It's not really presented anywhere. Women's issues, children's issues, the lack of access to medical care, agriculture, and the lack of ability of Palestinians to engage in agriculture. Even communities that were traditionally engaging in agriculture. archaeology has been completely taken. There is no Palestinian archaeology. If you go across to Palestine, all archaeology is right now in the hands of the Zionists, proving that what they're claiming is true, not presenting what is being found as history, but ignoring what's out there unless it validates their own narrative. Arts and culture, I don't have to tell anybody in this room, Palestinian arts and culture, whether it's food, theater, music, literature, and on and on. The enormous influences that are or groups and organizations that are influencing governments. AIPAC is one that comes to mind. The Anti-Defamation League is another. These are all organizations that are out there working, year-round, day after day, pushing extremely hard their own agenda, justifying what we've been seeing over the last 75 years happen in Palestine, and particularly, of course, now, with what's happening in Gaza. We want to have, one of the reasons we want to have an actual site, an actual building, the physical existence of Palestine in a city like Washington, D.C., which is full of embassies. And embassies, have these beautiful buildings, they've got a flag, they've got their Culture Day, they've got their Independence Day, they've got all these events that they put together, and it's one of the things that people like to go to are events at embassies. There's food, you mingle with other people, you interact, you hear a concert, or you see a play, or whatever the case may be, or maybe it's a lecture, and it's very, very appealing. People love to go to embassy events. People actually look forward to those, and they're open to the public. So we want to focus on Palestine, of course, because that doesn't exist. So while we're doing, the advocacy and the education, we're also inviting these people that we're targeting to events to come see Palestine. So you have a building, you've got Palestinian art, you've got Palestinian culture, you've got Palestinian poetry, suddenly inviting people into Palestine without them having to leave Washington, D.C. It's incredibly important and impactful when you walk in. And anybody that has experienced Palestine, you don't really need to talk about politics anymore because it becomes very obvious. Obviously, we want to have things like we can put together think tanks to strategize. The other side has so many think tanks in Washington, D.C. that's not even funny. I don't know where they find all the money. Millions and millions of dollars. They do nothing much but put out information, but it's based on the Zionist narrative. Very little, if anything, is put out for Palestine. We will have a studio where we can create, where we can have podcasts, where we can interview people, we can put out videos and so on. This is such an incredibly important part of how we reach out to the public. And of course, that's going to be the place where the actual work gets done, where the team can sit and do their work. So it kind of goes without saying, but people do ask, why do you need a location? Why do you need an actual place? Well, you need an actual place, even just for the, even just for the symbolism, the people driving up and down those streets, the main streets of Washington, D.C., they see a building, they see a Palestinian flag, they see the Harriya, they see posters on the outside promoting Palestinian culture, promoting events, promoting, tours to Palestine, for example, and so on. I went the wrong way again. Sorry. Oh, I'm going backwards again. Sorry. I haven't done a PowerPoint in a long time. You see the Harriya, content creation. Strategic alliances with existing NGOs, that's obvious, I mentioned that. Talking to, using experts that are out there, whether it's polling, whether it's PR, whether it's marketing, whatever the expertise that are out there that are going to be identified and needed. And in terms of marketing, in terms of putting out the public relations that we need to be put out, then we have things that we own, like platforms that we own, like a website, like the physical location, the social events that we put together, and then things that we have to pay for, like public relations, online presence, and print and other media that we're going to use. And what happens now, there's really a lot of there are many platforms, and there's a lot of materials, and people are making T-shirts and posters, and there's a lot of things going on social media. But it's always everything stays within within our realm. Very little is going out beyond that, and so we want to push it beyond that, and we also want everything to be connected to a strategy, everything being connected to a particular message that we all identify, and that's of course not happening at all. And that's the end of the presentation. So basically that, hopefully gives you an idea of the vision that we have for this location, the vision that we have for this thing, for this place, and the urgent need to do this. If we don't win Washington, D.C., or as sometimes people say, if we don't liberate Washington, D.C. from the Zionist occupation, we will never be able to liberate Palestine from the Zionist occupation. And I don't think, again, I need to stress to anybody in this room just how crucial it is. And that without change in Washington, D.C., we will not see change in Palestine. That's where decisions are being made, whether we like it or not. That's where policy is made. That's where the money is coming from. That's where the weapons are coming from. And that's where the diplomatic cover for Israel is coming from. So again, just to reiterate that, the funding, we have, like Rima was saying, we have an organization, we have a registered nonprofit organization in Washington, D.C. It's called 501c3. It has rules and regulations. We have an accounting firm that specializes in 501c3 accounting, so everything is transparent and everything is legal and everything is clear. We have a bank account, and there's a QR code if anybody wants to check it out. Feel free to do so and make donations even this evening. So we've got all that, and we've put all that together. Like I said, now we just need to actually go back and get to work. Now, before I invite Isa up, I just want to say one or two things. So Isa came here across the bridge just for this, and I think most people here know who Isa is. But just on a personal note, he's not just a very good friend and a very trusted friend. He's one of the most courageous and brilliant people that is working to free Palestine in Palestine, which is why he's being targeted, which is why he lives in this horrific reality in Hebron, where every step he takes, he needs to look around and make sure that nobody's shooting him. And I've been to Hebron, I've been to visit him, and I've done things with him for many years. And I've seen with my own eyes the blatant hatred of the settlers and the soldiers, and the expressions of hatred, and the threats, actual threats, without any fear that they will kill him, whether these are kids, settler kids, whether these are soldiers, whether these are officers. We've seen the videos of him getting beat up. We know that he's been arrested and tortured many times, and he's still there. And you saw the list of our members. About half of them are people like Isa, who are doing this incredible work in Palestine. Incredible work, courageous heroes, courageous leaders who are doing work throughout all of Palestine, from the Naqab in the south, all the way through Gaza, Hebron, Jerusalem, Lid, Ramli, Yafa, all the way to the north in the Galilee and Nazareth. And so we are going to be their voice, because their voice hits a glass ceiling. You don't hear about them. If you hear anything about Palestine, it's usually not theirs. From time to time, because of Isa's brilliant ability to work and kind of work through this very difficult process, his voice is heard from time to time, but nowhere nearly enough. And so Dar al-Hurriya, and the reason those people are part of this, number one, because they personally said to me, get out there and do this already. Get out there and get this done already. We need this. But they are important voices doing the work, and they will provide the knowledge, they will provide the information that needs to be put out, and it's going to be our job to elevate those voices, to raise those voices and make sure they're heard in all the different areas that we showed in Washington, D.C. So please help me welcome my friend Isam. Can we switch on the lights? بدي اشوفكم تشوفوني منيح. اتوقع البرزنتيشن انتهى، فبدنا نحكي هلا كلام من القلب يعني بشكل مباشر. مساء الخير لكم جميعا. طبعا في لنا زميلة اسمها نورا أبو ستة، كانت تيجي واستشهد قريبها بسبب عدم وصول للدواء، فعندها عزاء. فاحنا كل الشعب الفلسطيني عنده تضحيات وعنده خساره وعنده عائلات جوا فلسطين وخارج فلسطين. بلشوا البرزنتيشن بكلمه نتنياهو انه بده يسوي ريبليسمنت للنورا. بتعرفوا شو يعني هذا؟ end the right of return. يعني هو بيستغل الحرب ينهي حق العوده. يعني هي هو ما مش مشكله في النورا، هو بقول لك اي يو ان اجنسي ممكن انه تجيب اديوكيشن وتجيب هاي واحد. اثنين، اذا بتتبعوا بالحرب كان يحكي نتنياهو انه هاي وور is civilized people against uncivilized people. صح؟ مظبوط؟ طبعا ما فيش حدا فلسطيني فويس فلسطيني طلع يحكي بهذا المستوى بهاي الببليسيتي انه هاي لا occupied people against occupiers oppressor و oppressed people. هذا مش موجود عندنا. ما في عندنا فويس فلسطيني يطلع مع ببليسيتي وانه يقنع ويوصل افكار ويحرج داعمي الاحتلال. كمان شغله حكوا انه احنا هيومن انيمالز. مظبوط؟ وراحت كثير بالاعلام، وفي الاعلام انا مختص كثير ممكن بالاعلام الامريكي وبكتب وبروح وباجي وعلى تواصل مع كثير اعلاميين عالميين بيصدقوا روايتهم بسرعه. وشفنا في بدايه الحرب كيف بعض الامور مشت كثير على نيويورك تايمز وعلى واشنطن بوست ووين ما كان بالعالم. احنا ما عندنا كفلسطينيين شيء سنترال يشتغل على قضايا محدده في اماكن محدده. احنا عندنا كثير تالنت. انا تفاجأت في فريده، بس بعرف انه الشعب الفلسطيني مليان كثير زي فريده، لان انا وين ما بروح بشوفهم وبلاقيهم وما شاء الله عليهم، وفي امريكا وفي كندا وفي كل العالم وفلسطين وخارج فلسطين وبالاردن. شبابنا والصبايا الصغار بجننوا، يعني عندهم تالنت وبشكل رهيب جدا، بس صوتهم ونشاطاتهم للاسف الكل بيحاول يسحبهم لتحت، ما حدا بيحاول يدفعهم لفوق. وانا بحكي لكم عن تجربتي الشخصيه، معظم اللي موجودين بيسحبوا لتحت، بيدفعوش لفوق، بحاولش، ما في حدا بيحاول تبوش يو اب. بالعكس، كل الشغل للاحتلال. انا اول واحد تعذب ب 7 اكتوبر، اول واحد اعتقل ب 7 اكتوبر، وانا عيسى بيعرفوني منيح وخلوني يمكن اسبوعين مش قادر احكي. ما بدهم اصوات فلسطينيين. بدي احكي لكم شغله، انا بتبع المستوطنين وكيف بيشتغلوا بامريكا وبيشتغلوا في اوروبا وكيف بيدعموا بعض، وكيف انه هم قادرين يشتغلوا على الروايه تبعتهم، يشتغلوا على الاعلام، يشتغلوا على النشاطات الاجتماعيه، يشتغلوا على النشاطات الاقتصاديه. في دار الحريه لازم نشتغل اقتصاد بيكو كمان، بزنس ريليشن شيب بين امريكا وفلسطين والوطن العربي. هذه شغلات كثير مهمه. جمعوا، تعرفوا انهم جمعوا $1 مليار من امريكا لاسرائيل ب 7 اكتوبر. مليار، 1 بليون. جمعوا في امريكا $1 بليون. انا بشوف ابنه مستوطني بالخليل بيسووا كراود فاندينج، بيقولوا بدنا $1 مليون. احنا عاده بنكيف اذا جبنا 50% من التارجت. والله شفته 120% خلال 10 ساعات. جمعوا $1,200,000 لبناء مستوطني بالخليل. هاي دار الحرية هي اسمها دار الفلسطينية. هذا اللي بنشوفه. والفلسطينية عندهم سبيكتروم، عندنا ناس ريليجيوس، ليبرال، مودريت. واحنا بصراحة بدنا الناس اللي مش محزبين ومش حابين يتحزبوا، حابين يضلوا مستقلين، بدهم شيء عنوان لما يروحوا يشتغلوا لفلسطين يلاقوه. فمن هذا المنطلق انا عيسى دعمت فكره دار الحريه كدار لكل الفلسطينيين. لانه من متابعاتي ومن شغلي في معظم البرلمانات بصفتي مدافع عن حقوق الانسان، دار الصهيونيه موجوده في دي سي وفي نيويورك
وفي كل امريكا في دار اسمها دار الصهيونيه، في شيء مبين وفي شيء مش مبين، وموجوده بكل العالم، بيشتغلوا شغل، يعني اللي بتنافس على السياسه باتجاه الشرق الاوسط وباتجاه فلسطين واسرائيل ايباك وجي ستريت. مظبوط؟ في طرف ثالث؟ في يا ميكو؟ ما في، فيش غير جي ستريت وايباك وبسووا نشاطات، واحنا كفلسطينيه ما في شيء جامع إلنا يجمعنا يوحدنا يمثلنا يرفع صوتنا يسوي كوميونيكيشن يسوي نتوركينج يسوي لوبي يسوي يعني كامبينز، هذا كله مش موجود. فاحنا بدنا نحاول ان شاء الله مع بعض كلنا نشتغل على فكره انه مره نبلش بهذا الاكزامبل بي دي سي، وبكره بتصير بعمان دار الحريه كمان، اللي احنا كلنا مع بعض نتفق على شيء واحد كفلسطينيه او داعمين للفلسطينيه في هذا اللي موجود. يعني في دي سي، في ركابين، بتعرفوا شو ركابين؟ ركابين بالعربي معناها مراقبين. ركابين هي انشاؤه للمستوطنين بتشتغل في مناطق جيم. المين مانديت المكتوبه اونلاين to remove the Palestinian identity from area C. إزالة الهوية الفلسطينية من مناطق جيم، وعندهم فاندينج وعندهم ادفوكسي. كل ما اروح دي سي انا بدخل مكتب لكونغرس ممبر بحكوا لي بتعرف ركابين كانوا هون قبلك. طيب في شيء اسمه عاد كان، هذول المتطرفين الكهنس، انا بقول لكمش عن الليبرال لسه، انا بحكي لكم عن اكثر ناس متطرفين. عاد كان برضه مؤسسه صهيونيه في الداخل متطرفه جدا، بيسووا ادفوكسي ونتوركينج وكلتشر وبيسووا اجتماعات، وشفنا كلنا سموتريتش في فرنسا البوديوم لما حط خارطه اسرائيل، كلنا شفناها تقريبا، الاردن منها، شوي من سوريا، شوي من العراق، شفتوا الخارطه. هذا كان احد مناطق اللي بيسموها دار الصهيونيه بفرنسا. فيا ريت احنا كلنا مع بعض نشتغل انه ندعم هاي الفكره، فكره فيها ناس راح ياخذوها فلسطينيه بشكل واضح، قانونيه 100%. عندنا ميكو وكلنا بنعرف مين ميكو، انا بعرفه من 10 سنوات وصوته اعلى من صوتي، وفي شغلات كثير هو بيقدر يحكيها انا ما بقدر احكيها. انا ساكن جنب المستوطنه، ساكن داخل فلسطين، ساكن في الخليل. فمن هذا المنطلق انه كل واحد فينا عنده اكسبرتيز في شيء بده يحطه عشان نقدر انه نكون فخورين باولادنا في المستقبل انه احنا قدمنا لهم شيء. وتنكسر اهم فكره للصهيونيه انه الكبار راح يموتوا والصغار راح ينسوا. هذا اهم شيء، انه احنا نستمر بالكلتشر وبالارت وبالسبورتس وبالبزنس وبالاديوكيشن، انه كثير مهم انه احنا نركز على الاديوكيشن والنولج والاكسبيرينس، ويصير في انتجريشن بيننا في فلسطين وخارج فلسطين. وما بتعرفوا انتم قديش احنا في فلسطين لما نشوف المظاهرات في العالم قد ايه بننبسط. انا مجرد اني اروح على الناس، انا معظم شغلي الايام بروح اسمع من الناس وبحكي لهم شوفوا بالله حديد. انا طفل من الاطفال في تل رميده اعتقلوه المستوطنين والجيش، وانا صورته ونشرنا صوره، وبالله حديد سوت ريبوست على الانستغرام تبعها. لما ورجيت الطفل هذا انه هو يشوف حدا مشهور كثير سوى ريبوست، الطفل كثير تشجع، اهله تشجعوا، بقيه الاطفال شعروا بانه عملهم ضد الاحتلال وتحديهم كثير مهم. فشكرا كثير لحضوركم، وانا كثير مبسوط اني جيت معكم اليوم، وشكرا كثير لميكو، وبتمنى انه يستمر، ولريما ولعزام ولفريده ولبشار ولكل القائمين على هاي الفكره. في عدد كثير كبير داعم لهي الفكره، بس احنا بحاجه انه احنا بجد نفكر انه احنا بنقدر نغير، وانه احنا عندنا قوه ان نتغير. واحنا بصراحه هلا احنا في افضل حالاتنا، صح الوضع اصعب شيء علينا، بس احنا في افضل وقت للقضيه الفلسطينيه حتى من كل العالم. شكرا كثير لكم.
والآن سنبدأ بالأسئلة، ويفضل أن يكون مختصر وعن دار الحرية تحديداً، فعشان نعطي الكل مجال يشارك بالأسئلة. فتفضلوا.
في مايك بليد ولا
في مايك؟ هلا. تفضلوا.
think it's very important to consolidate efforts rather than having new initiatives. I come from very old experience with the anti-apartheid movement and early Palestinian activism in Europe. We should have one address. You have BDS, you have PSC, Palestinian Solidarity Campaign. They have problems, all of them, we know that. We work with all of them. But at the end of the day, starting from scratch is a struggle, we all know that. The anti-apartheid movement, when it started in the 60s, 70s, whatever, it was one address for the South Africans. One movement started in the UK and spread all over the world. They were focused on banning from Olympics, trade ban, etc. So why do we have something, then we have BDS, which is doing a good job as well, and different stuff. Why not consolidate? Why are we building something new? This is from, my name is Tariq.
That's a very good point. And the idea is we're not really starting from scratch. What we're doing is we're learning. We've been, this idea has been discussed by a group of us for a long time. I've been talking about this since before COVID. And it just takes time to put it all together. There are a lot of organizations out there, but there's nothing central. And there's nothing that is, if you drive around Washington, D.C., there's no Palestine. They wiped it out, it's gone, there's nothing there. Every flag around the world, there's no Palestinian flag. And all the groups that are out there, and some of these groups, like you said, they do a great job. It's not present in that way that we're seeking to elevate this. We're seeking to elevate this from the volunteer, kind of activist realm to a real professional realm, to a building that is, you drive by, you see the flag, right away you know Palestine is there. Then, as we, disseminate all of this information, which is not just done, let's have the way it works right now, I mean, even the small organizations, like you say, they do a good job, but it's very small. And obviously, some of these organizations have been working for a very long time. And if we measure by the results, then obviously we do not have results. The results are not in our favor. So we need to elevate all of this. We need to make it more professional. We need to have it, it has to be well funded. We have to rely on professionals who are going to be in the building and do this. Huh? Yeah. And it's time to raise Palestine to the grown-ups league, you know what I mean? To raise it to the, to the professional league. And it's not there. And that's unfortunate. So this is an attempt to do that. We're not working against anyone with some halal. The idea is for everybody to be able to come and work together. But it's time for us to elevate this, to elevate the issue to a level that cannot be ignored. Everything that's been done so far is being ignored, obviously. We need to make a bigger effort so that we're not ignored and Palestine cannot be ignored anymore.
And I see your point very well. And in fact, I was in college when the African movement was happening. And it actually did what we want to do now. It did the grassroots. It actually spoke with the students in the universities and converted their minds. It went to every corner. The country in Britain that I was in was heavily invested in South Africa. They had businesses, they had everything. The South Africans came to us and said, "You're smoking Rothmans. This is an apartheid company." We started from the scratch. But I want to answer your BDS. The BDS, by the way, is fought in America on local level and state and whatnot. Now, with what happened in Gaza, you see people from Arkansas saying that I'm paying my taxes, and so that I get business with the local government, I have to sign that I will not boycott Israel. BDS is actually, there are legislation against it. Therefore, there is a space that is missing. We need to be talking about that. We need to be talking to people. They now are actually complaining. I am paying my taxes in Arkansas, and you're asking me to take a position about Tel Aviv or Jerusalem. I don't see why you're twisting my arm. And this is very un-American. And that's where we come in. That's where we actually capture this momentum and make it happen for us. And that's the right time for us, because there are good talents, but every talent is doing its own thing by itself. We want to connect those dots. I hope I answered your question.
Okay, I want to add. Thank you for your question, and it's a very important question. But I disagree that we should not build something new. On the contrary, it's the right time to build something new. I can tell you PLO is there, and you can say that don't replace it. And we don't want to replace PLO, and we don't want to replace PA, and we don't want to replace PDS, and we don't want to replace PSC in the United Kingdom. And I can mention another 50 organizations who, as Isa in Hebron, I don't see them in the ground, okay? I don't see that they are doing what I want as an activist who's paying very high price for what he's talking about. This is one. Something else, we want to be represented. And BDS, you know, now Israelis are here. Israel is here, and we are here. And BDS works to bring Israel down, to make them pay the price, boycott, you know, and all this, their work. All respect, we need them, and it's very important what they do. But we in Dar al-Harriya, and this is what I was talking to Miko many times, we want to level up Palestinians. And it's not BDS or Dar al-Harriya, BDS or BSC, Dar al-Harriya or PLO. We want PLO to be very strong, transparent, not corrupt. The same with BDS, the same with BSC, with the same all organizations, and we are almost there. We need everybody. You know how many organizations they have, how many groups, how many think tanks, how many PR. So you need to have a real civil society, very strong civil society, represented. I don't want to say what Miko says, from the river to the sea, but even in Jordan, because I see it's not only from the river to the sea. It's from the river to the sea, Jordan, Lebanon, and all Palestinians in the diaspora, and even the pro-Palestinian movement, because there are many people who are principled, who are supporting our cause, because it's really a moral cause, and what are we doing this is. So we have to build something new, and we should not be afraid from anything we are doing as Palestinians. If it's in the right way, it's in the legal way, and you do it transparent and very strong. And Miko, we know him, we know his position, he's not going to change, and we know we have a General Assembly, we have board, we have accountant, and they are all amazing people. But nobody of us, maybe I'm very famous, I'm one of the most famous ones in the General Assembly because I'm always in the media. But all of them doing amazing work, much better than me, but they are not mentioned. Why? Nobody's boasting their voice, because they are not PFLP, because they are not Fatah, because they are not Hamas, because they are not I don't know what. We should go out of this box. That we are labeled with certain organization or certain group or certain family or certain area in all over the world. And one small example, you saw Hussam Zumlot. You know, we have amazing speakers, 10 times better than Hussam. Hussam is my friend. But where are they? Do you know about them? And they speak every day, and they complain because they volunteer. They work and volunteer for Palestine. They complain about that nobody is supporting them. We need to support them. We need to post their voices. So level up Palestinians with all aspects. Liberal, religious, moderate, all of them, all together, and diversity. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I want to ask about funding and how will you sustain the funding? Because to bring the level up, you need a lot of money.
We are actually here, and we will go everywhere for a call of action. The people that are in this room that invited you and the people that are speaking on behalf of it committed their funds. But we want, ideally, we would like to have, let's say, 100 people commit for $20,000 in a year for 5 years for us to actually shoot up. It's not a big amount. compared to what the Israelis can pay and do pay, and we will go to other places also. But if that is not possible, we welcome any amount. It is time actually that we stand up and we support a voice that would be acceptable in the West. We have a momentum called the population, and there is no politician that would take a right decision unless forced by his people, and that's how South Africa fell, and that's how Israel is going to fall. Otherwise, fighting and military and all of this is not the answer. The answer is the Western Europe population, and the population of the world forces their own governments to land, to bring back their ambassadors, to land their aircrafts, and to stop dealing with them, to bring them to their knees. Thank you.
Thank you. تفضل.
Thank you. Regarding the funding, what you mentioned sounds like peanuts compared to what the Zionists can do. And we are, as Arabs, we have resources and we have money. And I think the fight should also be in the Arab world to get to that money and to change governments and to be brave to change within before we go outside. And so I'm wondering, what is
We're not going.
So my question is, what is your plan? Are you looking for a Bernie Sanders kind of grassroots funding? Or would you go for the big Arab funders that should be putting the bill in for us?
When you say
who are the enemy as much as Israel is the enemy?
You're asking about us getting government funding, or are you talking about individual funding? Because لا احنا I think the whole idea is that this is an independent organization. We will not take government funding. We will actually take affluent Palestinian funding as much as they want, as much as they can help us. We will.
lobby in Saudi Arabia, Emirates, everywhere, of course. To the people, but not to the development.
Look, there's two points I think you brought up that are really important. But first I want to say this. There's a stigma that Arabs don't give to Palestine, that even wealthy Palestinians don't give to Palestine. It's time to break that stigma. Okay? I think, and I know wealthy people who can fund this by themselves. The amount that Rima was mentioning, 100 people, $20,000 a year, that's $2 million. I know people that can just fund it themselves, and I think many people here probably know that too. So, is the stigma true? I mean, are Arabs, are Palestinians not capable of funding their own freedom? I don't believe it's true. But I do believe that you have to have, number one, you have to have an organization that is compelling enough, that is strong enough, that has the vision that will excite people and make them want to give. So a good point, thank you. So when we came out with this 100 people, $20,000, the first $20,000 that we got was somebody that I think everybody here knows very well. His name is Roger Waters from Pink Floyd. He was the first one that stepped up and paid the $20,000. So actually we only need 99. And actually, like Rima was saying, there are a few people already here that are committed, so we need a little bit less than that. But the stigma, I think, needs to be broken. And I think that nobody can appreciate, I mean, Isa talks about it very passionately, because he's right there. But I don't think there's anybody in the world that can appreciate the need for this more than Palestinians. And so, yes, we're not limiting ourselves to which countries we go to, except, like Rima was saying, we don't want government money. We want people to, we're going to be independent. Government money comes with strings. We don't want that. But, sure, we can come here. We can go to the Gulf. We can go to a lot of places. There are plenty of Palestinians in America as well that can do this. But we're here now because the team that was put together here, and and we know that there are people in this country, Palestinians in this country, that can help us out. So if $20,000 seems a little, then by all means, we'll take more than that. And the $2 million, yeah. And if somebody wants to can only give the less, of course that's true too. And we're going to have other fundraising strategies that we employ. But this is where we are right now. This is what we want to do right now.
comes out of here because here is actually Palestine, and the Palestinian people and the Jordanian people are actually in solidarity. So we start with a base of people that we know are here, and so we know that we have Palestinians as well, but I think it is absolutely important that the starting point is here.
Can everybody see the QR code?
We're not blocking it.
Hi, my name is Tamara Abdel-Jabir. Thank you for leading on this great, very much needed initiative. I'm curious to know what your implementation roadmap looks like. What are you looking to achieve within the next 12 months, within the next 3 years, etc.? Thank you.
So we're putting in place, it was on that chart, maybe I didn't explain it quite well. You know, obviously we need to measure, we need to measure impact. So in order to measure impact, we need polling. So, and I think there's two parts to that. Number one, are we getting the message across and are we seeing results? Are people thinking differently about Palestine? Are people realizing what the needs are? And so there's a constant need to test our results. And we're going to have in place, it was in the chart, there's going to be in place mechanisms to check our progress all the time. I absolutely believe with every cell in my body that as soon as we start, once this thing is really off the ground, and we begin to strategically educate and strategically be out there and advocate and strategically and clearly elevate Palestinian voices like Isa's and others like he was saying, that change is inevitable. Now, can we compete with the billions and billions of dollars from the other side? No, but we don't need to, because our message is simple, and we have one tool, and I've said this a lot, we have one tool that the other side will never have. And that's the truth. So we don't need to build and build and build and strategize and build lies upon lies upon lies and invent a new definition for anti-Semitism and invent a new definition for this and make sure that every city council around the world applies this particular definition. All this nonsense, we don't need that. All we need to know, all we need to do is to make sure that the story, the true story, is available. And right now it's not. So even if you had a principled politician, and there are a few, even in Washington, D.C., that wants to make an informed decision, they do not have that. They do not have the tools. They'd have to dig and dig and dig and dig and dig, and we need to put it front and center, whether they want to, whether they don't want to, whether they care, whether they don't care, they see it, it's up there all the time. That's what we're supposed to do. And I believe that once we start this, we're going to see change immediately.
Thank you. Oh.
I just want to say there is a lot of reports, as Miko presented in his presentation, reports that have dust on them, that we need to undust and actually put the sunshine on these reports, in view of the fact that South Africa went to the ICJ, and we have now even when they rejected the case in the US, the judge said that he implores the Biden administration to stop being complicit with genocide. So we have momentum, and we want to build on that. And that's where we are different than all the other organizations, because we're going to take that to the average person in the street, to the schools, to everywhere, and compete with the birthright trips, compete with everything that AIPAC does. And we're not asking for a prize in return. We're just asking them to understand and be educated about our plight. And once they do, they will know that this is everything anti what they have been told the Western principles are. And that's the truth, and that's exactly an easy sell if we put our mind to it. But we have always been on, we want to talk to the decision makers. None of them are interested. None of them think about a win-win solution. It's, I want to win and you lose. That's politics.
Thank you.
It's a very important question. I will ask you as a really practical person. I'm an engineer, so I'm practical. Okay.
Rami, one of the main supporters, talked to Tamim al-Barghouti about the idea, and Tamim told him, when I will come to Dar al-Harriya to present. He was so excited, Tamim. And we have many other Palestinians ready with campaigns, with activities, because we can't here show the breakdown of what we can do, what we will do, and for sure we talked about the indicators, we talked about how to measure the indicators and to really build a real strategy to reach to local governments. I don't think you can hear it from anybody that they go to local governments, because maybe you can go to the Congress, but you know, the local governments, they go to Congress. We want to work with them in the campuses first. This is how Israel works. They bring them when they are very young, before they become famous, then they own them. We want to do, you know, a counter strategy to their strategies too. This is one of the things we should do. But what's good in Dar al-Harriya, it's open to any Palestinian, to any idea, to any project which will elevate the Palestinian cause. This is something very important. And you know, why we don't do, when I went to the States and I met many Palestinian families there, I told them, why you don't train your kids to go do advocacy in Washington, D.C. In the summer, take them, train them, and make them go to, you know, to the Congress members, they vote, or they don't vote, or from their area, and just make them just visit and talk to them. We don't have a central body doing this. This is why I say it's very, very important that we need this, you know. Maybe it's a small organization, JVP does it in a certain way, AMP does it in a certain way in DC, but we need to do it as a part of our family work, part of our strategy as Palestinians.
And this is, by the way, I got to add to that, you know, this is exactly what the Zionists do. This is exactly what is done in Israel. Every kid knows that when they go overseas on a trip, or if they go overseas to a school exchange thing, they are the ambassadors of their country. They are the ambassadors of Zionism. They're ambassadors, you know, and they have those tools. So, and that's exactly the kind of work that we're talking about.
Thank you very much for your presentation and for the initiative. And I think, personally, I think it's the right time. Sadly, it should have maybe happened 30 years ago, before Oslo happened. Lovely Oslo. Anyway, I have a serious concern, which I would like to put in front of the panel regarding the strategy. What we see now is a war of erasure. Basically, the situation now, unlike South Africa, is a zero-sum game from the perspective of the Zionist movement. They want to erase Palestinians. You're not supposed to talk. You're not supposed to even advocate. You're not supposed to sympathize. We see this everywhere. The new element which is introduced now is the social media. They lost the grip on the very narrative that they've been propagating through the usual suspects of platforms. So how does Beit al-Harriya consider the immediacy? I mean, we have an immediate situation. How do you want to strategize? Since the Congress decided never to ask for a ceasefire, even the most progressive ones don't want to. How this is going to be addressed? How do we not repeat, I mean, Gaza is still going on, we might have another Gaza. What do we do? That's one of the issues that I think strategically are very important to address, and also another issue building on the idea of synergy. Similar to the Cold War, we have now huge grassroots movement all over the world. How can such an entity build on that? Because now you have a generation that has a different view. What our parents lived through Nakba, they're seeing now. We're seeing now. So those are the two questions I have. Thank you very much.
You mentioned the urgency now, and that's exactly what we are saying, because there was a poll in the US where 50% of the US public said that the war was not handled by Biden in the proper way. You also had an election year where for the very first time the Muslims and the Arabs in the US decided to vote as a one bloc. We happened to be in swing states, and they actually sent the president a message, an unequivocally clear message, read by a person in a video, sent to the president saying that you have not protected us overseas, and now you're not protecting us in the US, and one, we're not going to vote for you, and two, we're going to protect ourselves. And so it seems to me that once you have, if you have a central point that directs and unleashes the talents that we have everywhere, in every township and in every county and in every state in the US, we would be able to have a momentum. You saw in the demonstrations, this was done by students who were actually labeled, funnily, as Muslim, Islamist and communist simultaneously. And I mean, it's just like, and by a stupid politician like Nikki Haley, because she went and sat on a UN chair. She thinks that she knows foreign policy inside and out. And she said, they are all Russians because on October 7 they did it because it's Putin's birthday. Then a very seasoned politician, when a group that I know in DC that have been doing marvelous job, they go and they camp in front of Lincoln's house, and in fact in McLean. And McLean is famous that one, it's all the upper echelon of the rich people in DC. Two, those who work in the government. Any upper echelon person that works in the government lives in McLean. They are acting Gaza in front of his house with buckets of blood-looking water. My friends, all of them, white Americans, are sending for them cookies. And Nancy Pelosi, when this group went into her speech, she said, I'm going to tell the FBI to investigate them because they must be sent by Russia. I mean, it's just like they are going stupid because everything that they know is based on stupid lies. Very stupid lies. And if we're not in the field putting the truth, that lie flies and gets credibility.
And I'll just add to that, you said the word strategy many times, and that's exactly what's lacking. So if somebody has a good idea, say, ooh, let's do this, let's make a t-shirt, let's put a poster on a bus stop. So they raise money, somebody gives a couple thousand here and there, boom, they have it for a few weeks, and that's it. You know, what we want to do is if we, strategically decide there's a message, and the best place to place that message is on bus stops, then we define the message, we define the graphics, we define the budget, and we do it strategically. And then maybe we do billboards, and maybe we do an ad in the paper, and then we align that with social media, because like you said, young people don't read the New York Times. You know, if they see the New York Times, it's because something came up on social media, and so they saw that the New York Times did something, you know? So that is exactly the word that I've been repeating over and over and over. There's no strategy. We have to define the strategy. And one of the strategies that, we found to be extremely important is high profile. Everything that has to do with Palestine right now is hiding. Don't hurt us, don't tell us, don't say this because this will get you in trouble, and don't say that because that'll get you in trouble. I spoke in a library in Albany, New York, and towards the end of my speech, the library administrator came to tell me, he said, you can't say this, you can't say this. I said, I can't say what? He said, you can't say river to the sea, that's hate speech. I said, that's a geographical definition of the country, from the River Jordan to the Mediterranean Sea. You can't say this. You know, they're out, and then a week later I was in Australia and I'm getting the same message. In Australia, immediately the same message. We don't have a strategy. And that's precisely what Dr. Harry is about, is implementing strategies that we've identified that we talked about, and then identifying, working strategically as we go forward with every aspect and every platform and every level of American society that exists, that is out there. But strategy is exactly the word, it's exactly the right word.
Excuse me, one more, we have another, we're going for 2 questions. There's one here. Tfadali.
Hello everybody. Thank you all for all what you have been doing. Obviously it's great. Thank you for all the work that you do inside Palestine. I just want to ask about the governance of this organization. You didn't talk about it at all. You talked about your strategy and so on. What is the governance that you have in mind? Do you have a board of trustees? How is it done? It's a more practical question.
Yeah, and I think I rushed through the... Maram is going to answer that. No, I rushed through this because one, it's actually daunting to read on a screen like this when you're standing here. But as I said, it's a tax-exempt organization that falls under 501c3 of the IRS code, and it's incorporated in DC. And so we follow the DC template in terms of the governance. But upon consultation with the group, most of the 501c3 in DC have a board, and they have an executive committee out of the board. The group found that we need actually a general assembly, which we call the members, and they oversee the strategy, they keep an eye on the governance and keep the organization basically legitimacy. There's at least 2 lawyers amongst the members. There are at least 4 people that are seasoned people that work on NGOs, and they know their way around DC. We have auditing, we have a compliance officer, and also we have to report to the IRS. And this, unlike other, we're not a collect money and give away to charity. This is expenses. You collect and we spend, and so it has to be above board, and it has to be documented. We have to tell the tax authorities what exactly is going on. So it's watertight. And to be honest with you, we're also running, not everything is in place at the moment, because every time we speak with someone that we think that they are valuable for the organization, because we don't want to exclude any talent that we can have, because that's our asset, the talents and the truth and the momentum that's happening now. I hope I answered your question.
One more question. هذا آخر سؤال. Thank you.
Last question. Do you have the list, the 100-name list of the people who's going to fund? Are you communicating with them?
I mean, we have 100 people.
We have 100 Palestinians that can pay. I'm sure.
We are looking for the 100 people, to be honest with you still. We have some commitments.
So you don't have the list yourself to communicate with? You don't have?
I'm not the wrong person.
We've presented to several groups, not only here, mostly here in Amman, but in other places too, where to find 100, we don't have 100 yet, but we've presented to enough groups from which 100 can come out. And so we're in constant contact with the people that we discussed, but we don't have 100 yet. I mean, there's more than 100 people that can do it, obviously.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Because you say it's the momentum.
Yeah, of course. But we've presented it. We've thrown it out there enough.
No, I mean you personalize the request.
And this is our first public one. The other presentations we did were more private, but this is the first public one that we're doing. And so we're speaking to people in hopes of getting that 100 from within the groups that we're discussing.
So I'll send you them.
And we're not going to limit it to 100. If you find 101, I don't think we're going to say no.
I send you 100 names. I'm committed to this.
Thank you. شكرا لجميع الحضور، وبليز تفضلوا على منطقة الاستقبال، في كنبيز ومشروبات، واللي حابب كمان نكمل أسئلة أهلا وسهلا فيكم. It's around half an hour. Thank you.